Outlast 2 is one of the scariest horror games ever made, even if it has a somewhat controversial and confusing story that tells us what happened to Blake Langermann, a cameraman who spends the entire game trying to look for and rescue his wife Lynn from the rivaling cults in the small village called Temple Gate. He goes through a lot of punishment throughout the game, so the question is, how much plot armor does Blake have in 2017's Outlast 2? Today we'll be tallying up his medical bills without insurance of any kind, and every time he survives something out of sheer luck, usually due to the writing of the game, I'll keep track by giving him a chief token. Stick around to the end of the video where I'll be giving him a letter grade based on how much plot armor he has, so we can figure out which video game character truly has the most plot armor, and compare him to Miles and Waylon from the first game. Let's go. Starting off the game strong with a death from a helicopter crash. Usually, helicopters have a somewhat reasonable survival rate if the pilot can still control the helicopter. However, they're hit by what I like to call the Murkoff flavor blast, which has some sort of EMP component to it, and it clearly affects the helicopter, and that's why it crashes. And when a helicopter crashes where the pilot has no control over how it lands, they are almost always fatal, so I'm going to be charging a death right off the bat. And then when he crashes, he is sent from the helicopter as it crashes, and he lands between both of the doors. Helicopter doors are pretty heavy. They're made of metal, and they were hitting the ground very quickly, which means that with how these doors landed, he likely has a pelvic fracture, broken legs, and a skull fracture from his head hitting the door and rocks behind him. I'm also going to charge him $150,000 for loss of consciousness from head trauma. This is the amount I usually charge for from passing out due to head trauma on this channel. And since he lands flat on his back, I'm also going to charge him $100,000 for a broken spine. So I will charge for all of those right now. He's also getting a chief token because he is lucky that he was thrown from the helicopter rather than inside it, as helicopters almost always explode when they hit the ground from a crash, so he gets his first chief token. Later on, when Blake is sneaking through this barn, the wooden boards making up the attic give out beneath him, so he hits the ground flat on his face. This would likely break his nose and cause him some minor head trauma. And then every time Blake hallucinates from the Murkoff flavor blast, or hallucinates going to the school, and then when he leaves the hallucination is in a different area, I'm going to charge him a chief token. He has no idea where he is going at all of these points, and he doesn't hallucinate the layout of the school any differently. Every time he goes to the school, the layout is consistent. It never changes, except for when he's wandering through the library. I'm assuming they don't have a maze library. But still, he clearly has no concept of where he is going or where he is for the duration of these. So every time it happens, I'm going to charge him a chief token because he's lucky to be alive for wandering around the Arizona desert at night with an evil cult around, having no idea of what's going on, and he doesn't die. So he gets a chief token every time this happens. I'm not going to bring it up every time, but I will charge for it on screen. Here he gets punched in the face by one of the villagers, and since he walks all silly after this encounter, I'm going to charge him another $15,000 for a broken nose and additional head trauma. I'm also going to charge him a chief token here because he was technically sort of saved by Val. The other villagers were going to kill him, whereas Val wants to keep him alive and prevents the other villagers from killing him. So I guess it's a chief token. Seeing as this is the first point where Blake gets into the water, there's many points in this game where he's in the water, fully submerged, clearly ingesting the lake water. I'm going to charge him a lot of money here for mercury poisoning. It is a main plot point of this game that all of the water in Temple Gate is being poisoned by the Murkoff facility up in the mountains as they dump all of their waste into the water and it runs down the mountain into Temple Gate. They specifically specify mercury poisoning, which has lots of different problems. This can affect your kidneys, leading to you needing kidney dialysis for kidney failure. This can cause brain damage and tremors, among other things. It can cause permanent nerve damage and peripheral vision loss. All of these things are very expensive. So I'm going to charge $400,000 for regular kidney dialysis from kidney failure, $250,000 for treatment for brain damage, tremors, and anything else that this causes for damage to his brain, nerve damage and physical therapy from the nerve damage as well as treatment for it, and $15,000 for surgery or any other treatment for peripheral vision loss. After this particular Murkoff flavor blast, he falls down a literal cliff, and while it's not a super high cliff, it is high enough that it would break multiple bones, likely cause some head trauma and other contusions, as well as some fractures, bruising, cuts that need stitches, or organ problems if he hits the rock in such a way as to where the rock doesn't necessarily hit a bone, but hits something in his stomach, or it compresses a rib that compresses an internal organ inside. There's a lot of different stuff that could happen here. This could be a lot higher, this could be a lot lower. So I'm going to charge a middle amount of $200,000 for treatment for whatever happens to him from falling off a literal cliff. We know at minimum there's some head trauma going on here, as his vision is all blurry for a while. And then after this, I'm going to charge him a chief token for surviving going to sleep after getting a concussion. If you hit your head and you either pass out or you have blurry vision or anything like that, don't go to sleep. Go to the doctor. You likely have brain damage, and sleeping horizontally while you have brain damage is one of the most dangerous things you could possibly do. Don't do this. I'm giving him chief token. I'm going to charge him another $2,000 here for ingesting unknown and contaminated blood. Could get sick from overconsumption of iron or get some sort of bloodborne illness. This could be a super high charge. It could be nothing. I'm going to charge $2,000 here for a middle amount. And right here, this villager has Blake dead to rights and just decides not to kill him. He just decides to kill him elsewhere. He's literally about to slit his throat and he just doesn't do it. That's a chief token.
I'll bleed you in the yard!
Here I'm going to charge him for some minor head trauma, various contusions and bruising, and maybe even potential fractures from falling down the stairs. He clearly falls on his upper back and onto his head, so I'm going to charge $5,500 for this. During this chase segment, I'm going to charge him a chief token because he's lucky that the house basement that he randomly picks to hide in has a cartoonish secret escape tunnel like that lady from TikTok. And then here, he's lucky that the floor in this tiny room that he climbed into was basically just in complete shambles, so he could kick it and climb out from under it.
Gotta be somewhere close.
And then after the church segment, when he's trying to get closer to the mine, this stuff falls right after he passes through it. He's lucky it didn't fall on top of him, gets a chief token. And then here, Marta lets Blake go for basically no reason, and it lets him escape. She has no reason to let him go here. She has him dead to rights, she just lets go, and then tries to grab him again. Very confusing, gets a chief token. And then on this part, Blake falls off of a literal bridge. It is multiple stories up, at least 3 or 4, if not more. He would have died from this. Yeah, he falls into a tree, but trees aren't soft. Falling into a tree is not going to save you from dying. I'm charging him a death. And I'm going to charge him another $150,000 because he loses consciousness after falling, meaning he likely hit his head on the tree or some other thing, and he's hanging upside down from the tree somehow. There's nothing on the tree for him to get clipped on. This doesn't make any sense. I'm just bringing it up. There's not really, I don't know how to charge for this for plot armor. I'm just going to lump it in with the other $150,000. I'm going to charge him $300,000, and I bet you're wondering why. It's because I'm charging him to treat a wide variety of STDs, including, at bare minimum, gonorrhea and syphilis, if not AIDS and more. It could be a lot higher of a charge, it could be less. This could just also be a death. There are so many different things that could be happening here. The area that he falls into is literally the sick area where they send all of the villagers that get STDs and put them all here. And they are constantly shitting and peeing and bleeding in all of the water and on the ground. And one of the villagers even throws up on him. If that villager has an STD and it is spread through bodily fluids, he is getting an STD from this, which when he gets, affects his charge greatly. So I'm charging $300,000 as a sort of median amount. Again, the Scald live here because they have STDs. They have visible boils, visible sores. They piss and shit and bleed in the water. And he climbs in the water and he gets vomited on by one of them. I don't know why I'm over explaining this so much, but it's ridiculous. So he's getting charged $300,000.
No! No!
And then here, he ingests more unknown and contaminated blood, and he is bit by a human. You can get more diseases from being bit by a human than you can by just ingesting human blood, weirdly enough, because the mouth is very gross for most humans. I was originally just going to charge the normal amount I do for ingesting unknown and contaminated blood, but he is getting bit by a guy who lives in Gonorrhea Grove, so I'm going to charge $10,000 for it.
Open his mouth, Nick. There you go. God, please, let him be your one. He's unmarked. He's pure. He is the Scald Messiah. You half-wit dog's cut. He ain't been transubstantiated yet. He ain't been born. First, we gotta get him on that cross. Get my hammer and nails. Let's get on up that hill.
And then we get to the point of the game where Blake gets crucified, as is what tends to happen when you go on vacation. So I'm going to charge him for a couple of things here. Obviously, the first thing I'm going to charge him for is respiratory failure treatment, which means a long-term intensive care unit stay. Intensive care unit stays are very expensive, which is why I'm charging him $400,000. On top of this, I'm also going to charge him $50,000 for 2 broken hands and surgical muscle repair, foreign object removal in the form of 2 rusty nails, and infection treatment because the nails are rusty. And in this whole crucifixion scene, I'm going to charge him for 3 more things. Firstly, after he falls off the cross, I'm going to charge him for 2 broken arms. The cross is mounted up pretty high. It's mounted up 2 stories, and he falls onto 2 broken arms. After he has been hanging from them for multiple hours, he would likely break them when he lands, as he can't land properly. $60,000. And then I'm going to charge him 2 chief tokens here. The first time, because he is lucky that they crucified him wrong. If they didn't crucify him like this and instead crucified him the proper way, he just would have died. YouTube, what I'm about to explain is purely educational, and I must provide a warning: do not do this to anyone. But anyways, I was raised in a Christian school, so I'm kind of an expert on how to crucify people, because at the school I went to, they wanted to make sure that we knew how much Jesus suffered for people's sins, so they had a whole unit on crucifixion as a torture method. Yes, I learned about all of this back in like 5th grade. First off, when you crucify someone, you put the nails through their forearm, close to their wrist, between both of their arm bones, because those bones are meant to be more load bearing. The bones in your hands are a bunch of small bones attached by ligaments, and the nail will just slide out of them over time. Secondly, they nailed their ankles, not the foot, much for the same reason as you nail the wrist instead of the hand, to the sides of the cross so that their bodies didn't sag too much and they didn't fall off of the cross yet again. And they hung them up in such a way as to cause respiratory failure, because your arms are lifted up and it puts pressure on your diaphragm so you can't breathe properly, where more air comes out of your lungs than can come in. So your lungs fill with carbon dioxide and you essentially suffocate to death is how you die from crucifixion. That's why I charge for the respiratory failure. They crucify Blake completely wrong. They don't nail his feet to the cross at all, and they drove the nails through his hands. So of course, what did I mention earlier? He can rip his hands off of it. I will say though, that him actively ripping his hands off of the nails in the manner that he does with the lack of leverage he has is an inhuman feat of strength. That is not something you could possibly do after hanging from a cross for 2 hours. That's just not happening. So I'm charging him 2 chief tokens, one for the inhuman feat of strength, and another one because they crucified him wrong.
Vultures. How many corpses did you pick over?
And then later on, when you're crossing this fallen tree to cross the valley right here, Blake is shot by an arrow while tightroping across a small log over a high cliff. He would die from this, so I'm going to charge a death.
We have you. It's okay. We have you. The gospel isn't done yet.
And then Byron proceeds to bury Blake alive. I'm going to charge a death for this. And the reason I'm going to charge a death for that is because Arizona has very clay-rich and rocky soil, so a cubic foot of soil, specifically in Arizona, weighs more than it would somewhere else. He's looking at soil that weighs between like 90 and 100 pounds. He's buried in 6 to 8 cubic feet of soil, along with the weight of the coffin lid, which likely weighs like 15 to 20 pounds. So he likely lifted up about 400 pounds, give or take, depending on a lot of different factors, of soil and wood to escape. This is an impossible feat of strength after you have just been hung from a cross for multiple hours. There are holes in your hands, many cuts on your arms, and you are tired, on top of the fact that this is also just ridiculously heavy. So he's getting charged to death. When Blake's trying to escape the valley, he takes this rope and tries to go down the rope. All the villagers here mess with the rope and make him fall. It's not a super long fall, so I'm not going to charge a death for it. However, I am going to charge him $80,000 for a bruised spine as he hits a beam on the way down, and then he passes out due to head trauma, so I'm going to charge him another $150,000.
What? Don't touch me! I said get your hands off me! Touch disgusts me just out of you! Hey! Hey! No! No, goddamn you!
And then at the end here, I'm charging him a death not for the fall. I said I'm not charging him a death for the fall. I am charging him a death because he should have died from the building collapsing on him. It kills Byron, who's right next to him, but not him for some reason. Just a literal plot armor in its purest form, $7,000.
Hope to God I'm just losing my shit.
And then for this whole lake segment, I'm going to charge for a couple of things. First, I'm going to charge him a chief token that he didn't drown in the lake while completely losing his shit. I'm going to charge him 2 chief tokens for 2 instances of him hitting a rock, and he likely would have either fallen out of the raft and died, or like hit his head after hitting the rock and then died from that. And I'm also going to charge him a death here because there's multiple times where he falls out of the raft and he's actively gasping in fear as he falls, which means he likely would have taken in water, panicked, and drowned. That's just how the human body works. No matter how badass you are, if you panic and gasp while taking in water, you will just proceed to be in a cycle of panic and drown and die. So I'm charging him a death for this. And then towards the end of the encounter, I'm going to charge him for a near-miss boulder to the head, and because he keeps hitting walls with the raft, one of these likely should have killed him, and it didn't, so it's going to get chief token for the boulder, and a chief token for the fact that he keeps hitting the walls with the raft. And this part with the blood rain, I originally was gonna charge for ingesting blood, but this is likely not completely real. I do think it is raining here, and I do think that there could be a phenomenon here going on that's called red rain, which can happen around heavy sandstorms like what happens later in the game, even though that sandstorm is very heavily affected by his hallucinations. Red rain can commonly be conjoined with that, where it picks up all the dust in the air and it makes the water tinted red. So that could be happening here, but his brain is just amping that up and he's interpreting it as blood, which is likely what's happening later with the sandstorm, as I mentioned. And since the nearby Murkoff station does clearly affect the air visibly whenever it goes off, you could see like the wind going crazy, including the light adding to the heat of the area, and just the overall electromagnetic field of the area just getting distorted. I'm sure this would affect the weather and likely cause weird weather like this in some capacity. Of course, it's a sci-fi device. I have no idea if it actually does this or not. I just wouldn't be surprised if it did, because it clearly has some sort of effect on the environment. It kills the animals, at least the small ones. And it creates a level of wind and a very bright light. So I'm just bringing this up to explain why I'm not charging for it, because it's during this whole section, and I'm sure someone was going to bring it up in the comments, and I outsmarted you, buddy. LMAO, it's not plot armor, get a job. I charged for something similar earlier, but he's very lucky that this stuff fell right after he went through instead of falling on him and trapping him here, where he would likely die. This happens again a little bit later as well. During this teleport hallucination, I'm also going to charge him $10,000 because he falls flat on his face. Yeah, he's going to a hallucination, but they've established that what he does physically also happens in real life with his body. Going into the hallucination, he likely did it in real life, so I'm going to charge him a broken nose, $10,000. And then a little later, he falls down this coal ramp and falls face first into some rocks. I'm going to charge him for a broken jaw. And then during the extent of this mine section, I'm just gonna vaguely charge $5,000 for Blake swimming in still water, TikTok's greatest fear. There could be parasites in this water, much like the parasites that are likely in your lettuce in real life, that cause many different things. This could be a lot higher, this could be no charge because there's no parasites in the water. Still water overall just is a breeding ground for bacteria and parasites and disease and all that stuff. So I'm gonna charge a median amount of $5,000. And since there is a ton of lit torches down here with no ventilation, I'm going to charge him $2,000 to treat smoke inhalation. There is also earthquakes and stuff going on while he is doing this, so I'm going to charge him a chief token for surviving cave diving during an earthquake. Specifically this segment where he's in this very thin, nutty putty cave-ass area, and the rock is like wedging down above him, and it's terrifying, and I hate it, and I hate this section so much, because I hate being underground. I hate this section. I hate this section so much. Anyways, this gets a chief token. And then later on, during this segment with the, let's just say, very interesting group activity that was taken out of the Nintendo Switch port of this game. If you'd like to see an unrated cut of this video, that is available for members, but, I don't know why you would want to see this particular part, but it applies to the whole video. After this, another earthquake happens, and two very convenient rocks conveniently exactly fall on the two people that are holding him in place. That's hilarious. So I'm going to charge a chief token for each rock, because fuck it. I might as well just give this guy 30 more chief tokens right now. Clearly, it doesn't matter. Clearly, they just kind of let whatever they want happen to this guy. Clearly, he's just... He also gets blasted by mysterious powder that just makes him hallucinate again, but also, like, makes him dizzy and pass out, and I have no idea what this is. I can't think of a powder in real life that does this. So I'm just gonna vaguely charge $2,500 for it, for being blasted by a mysterious powder. And then, as Blake is escaping the mine, I'm going to charge him $90,000 for head trauma and a skull fracture from all of these falling boulders. There are tons of them, at least 100 of them, and none of them magically hit his head. That's crazy. One of them definitely would have. I'm charging him for it. And then once he is out and above ground, I'm charging him $2,000 for dirt inhalation from the sandstorm. I know he is hallucinating here, but much like the blood rain, I do think there is some real weather happening here. It's just being exaggerated because his brain has been scrambled, which we will talk about in a second.
Oh, shit! Blake! God, give me voice! God, guide my hand! God, give me voice! God, guide my hand! God, give me voice! Shit! God, guide my hand! God, give me voice! God, guide my hand!
And then the last thing we're going to charge for with the final Murkoff Flavor Blast with the sun exploding, Blake goes completely catatonic, and over the course of the game, has had his brain completely scrambled by the Murkoff Flavor Blast, which is likely an extent of the morphogenic engine that is being deployed in this way with this electromagnetic blast instead of being plugged into it. And we know that it is based off of the morphogenic engine because of the fake pregnancy from earlier. There's a note in the first Outlast game that explains why there's no female staff at Mount Massive, and that is because all of the female staff that were exposed to any radiation and stuff around the morphogenic engine were experiencing phantom pregnancies, where they had all of the physical symptoms of a pregnancy, but no actual pregnancy. In this game, Lynn has a phantom pregnancy and dies from it, but before she dies from it, she says there's nothing there, meaning the baby is not real, which means she is also experiencing this phantom pregnancy. Because if you didn't know, babies don't go through pregnancy in a day. That's not how it works. So Blake is likely not holding a real baby, and since he is also seeing this phantom pregnancy, he has also been affected by the shockwave, and that shows that they have both been experiencing the morphogenic engine through this shockwave. So combining the fact that Blake was put through the morphogenic engine, goes completely catatonic at the end of the game as he's experienced the Murkoff Flavor Blast multiple times, his brain has been completely scrambled, on top of all of the very real trauma from the day, such as having a child as his wife literally dies, knowing that his wife was sexually assaulted and raped, countless people dying, being tortured, crucified, beaten near to death, knocked unconscious multiple times, being at the mercy of a cult, seeing an evil mud orgy. All of these things, I'm gonna charge him $800,000 for medical treatment for all of these things, not just therapy. His brain has literally been altered by this. He is becoming what all of the crazy people are in the first Outlast game, where they're just doing weird random bullshit. That is what he is becoming here. That's what's happening to him throughout the game. So I'm going to charge him $800,000 for this. I think this is very fair. He goes through the most ridiculous brain-scrambling bullshit and some of the most horrifying trauma ever in this game. I think this is very safe to charge for. And yes, we know he doesn't die. He doesn't die, he just goes catatonic. He just goes completely insane. As if that's somehow better with a medical bill like this. Taking a look at our totals, Jesus Christ. Blake Langermann has a final medical bill total of $3,946,000 with 34 chief tokens and 8 deaths. If we combine the medical bill with his token and death score, he gets a total combined plot armor score of $4,326,000. That easily gets him a triple S rank. He has the super sexy style of plot armor. That is by far the highest total we have had in the series so far. In the same amount of time it took me to beat Outlast 1 and 2 is the amount of time it took me to beat this game. Meaning in the time it took Miles and Waylon to get a combined score of about 2.5 million, Blake racked up a score worth 4.3 million. I charged all of them for therapy, I charged all of them for brain scrambling, I charged all of them for their injuries as fairly as possible, same I did for Blake, and he just comes out with the most ridiculous shit ever. I went into this game not expecting his plot armor to be much worse than Miles and Waylon, because I was like, okay, that game was mostly pretty grounded, aside from obviously the sci-fi angle, but no. In this game, Blake just tanks the most ridiculous things ever, and by far has way more things happen to him in this game mentally and physically in like the same amount of time as both of them come up. It's ridiculous, and it's completely insane. I don't even know what to say. I don't know what to say. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like. If you disliked it, feel free to dislike it, but let me know why down in the comments. If you want to see more videos like this, you can hit the subscribe button, and you can hit the bell icon if you want to know exactly when those videos get uploaded. If you'd like to support the channel more directly, I also have some shirts that I've designed myself, linked down below. I have a G Fuel code with the BOGO going on right now, where if you buy one tub of G Fuel, you can get another one for free, meaning it's less than 50 cents a serving. If you type in code RESIDENT at checkout, you still get your BOGO deal, and I get some kickback to help support the channel. There are also channel memberships, and if you'd like to request a specific video, I do have a $10 video request here as well. Speaking of memberships, shout out to my members. You guys are the freaking best. Shout out to my nefarious residents: The Epic Rager, Once One Up, Paramichas, Casual BFG, Malplace, Feline Marie, Valdi8F, Jared Mail, David Gonzalez, Lamerica Pro, Rose Meredith, Marvin Israel, Nico Femboy, Wednesday April, Legalized Grenades, Boomstick, Daniel Adams, Diamond S&T, Fauzi, Michael, Sub Hankar, Equity PST, Rupert Chase, By the Light, Cabana Cop, P2D2, Guest, KH Slayer, Braytech Exoscience, Firebook Tutorial, Bio, Sean Lush, and Hamburn. And a super mega Murkoff Corporation shaped shout out to my malevolent residents of the channel: Aircrom Cromer for 16 months, Tim Just Be Really for 13 months, Rosie Posey for 7 months, Hope Burr for 4 months, Kumagato for 3 months, and Disarray for 1 month. Thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and yeah, stay evil, my residents.